factorization for grade 10. Some matrics also struggle with this in grade 11s. Is when they have to like factorize and solve for x. I believe in grade 10 you just factorize, you don't proceed to solve for x. So I'm going to factorize these. But here are the things you have to understand. Normally you're going to be given an equation or an expression like this and you have to like factorize it. Note the important factors are your plus and your minus when it comes to the last term, right? This is why. If your last term is positive, that means your signs in the brackets will be the same. So it's either going to be a positive and a positive, or it's going to be a negative and a negative. But then how will you know that? Well, let's look at this, for example. Here, the last term is positive. Now that means the sign in the brackets will be the same, right? But now you're confused. Well, will it be a positive and a positive or a negative and a negative? Well, you always look at the sign of your middle term. If your middle term is positive or negative, then those will be your signs. Now in our case, our middle term is negative. So that means our signs in the brackets will be the same because of the positive here, but then those signs will be negative and negative. Now the question is, how do we get the first term? Well, how do we get x squared? Remember, x squared is x multiplied by x. So this is going to be x here and x here. Good. Now you want two factors. When we multiply them, they give us 2, but when we add them, they give us negative 3. Well, that is 2 and 1, because negative 2 multiplied by negative 1 is equal to 2, which is our last term here. But then negative 2 plus negative 1, that gives us negative 3, which is our middle term here. So this is factorized, right? If the last term is positive, the signs in the brackets will be the same, but it's up to you to visualize or like see it, which term, what sign does the middle term has, and that's going to be the sign in those two brackets. If this was a positive, then both of these would have been positive, right? So let's try it here. Here we have that the last term is what? It's positive. Now the signs in the brackets will be the same. So what will be those signs? Well, it's going to be negative because the middle term is negative. So it's going to be negative and negative. How do we get the first term? It's always the easiest. Well, two factors, when you multiply them, they give us 4. But when we add them, they give us negative 4. Well, that's going to be 2 and 2, right? Now, let's get into this one. What happens if your last term is negative? Well, if your last term is negative, it means the signs in the brackets will not be the same, meaning you're going to have a positive or a negative or a positive. It doesn't matter which one comes first. Now, note now, because your signs are not the same, your factors will not just be like placed into like random brackets. The big number, the big factor goes in the sign of the middle term. You see here, we chose the sign of the middle term because we had to choose the same sign. So we chose the sign of the middle term. But when your last term is negative, the big number goes in the sign of the middle term. Let me not confuse you. Let's do this one. You do the same thing. You open up the two brackets, right? You ask yourself, the last term is negative. So that means it's going to be a positive and a negative. How do you get the first term? X and X. Now, you want two numbers or factors. When you multiply them, they give you negative 2. But when you subtract them, they give you a positive 1. Well, that is going to be 2 and 1. But now, remember, you have this factor and this factor. Now you take the big one and put it in the sign of the middle term. What's the middle term? It's a plus. So you take the big one, which is a 2, and put it here where the plus is. And you take that one and put it there. That's how you do it. Because 2 multiplied by negative, look here, 2 multiplied by negative 1 is equal to negative 2, which is our last term, right? And then if you say 2 minus 1, what do you get? You get 1, which is that one there. So that's how you do it. So let's try it here. So here we're going to have what? 2 brackets. When you factorize it, the last term is negative. The signs in the brackets will not be the same. So we do that. The last, how do you get that? Like that. Now we want 2 factors. When we multiply them, they give us negative 12. When we subtract them, they give us negative 4. And those factors are 2 multiplied by 6, right? Because 2 multiplied by that is 12, and then 2 subtracted by that gives us that. But now remember, I told you you're going to have two factors. One is going to be big, one is going to be small. You take the big one and put it in the sign of the middle term. What is our middle term? Negative 4. So the sign of the middle term is negative. So we take the 6 because it's the biggest factor. We put it here, and then the 2 goes in there. We just factorized it. Now, you see what I mean? So just try this one and put your factorized version in the comment section.